orphan boy and his younger brother used to go out very early every morning to inspect and reset their fish traps. One day, after they had worked for several hours inspecting traps, the orphan said to his brother, "You wait here while I go have a look at our other traps to see if we have caught any fish. Then when I come back, we'll fix some breakfast." So the younger brother stayed there beside the stream to wait. The orphan went and inspected all the traps they had set earlier. But when he got back, his little brother was nowhere to be seen. The orphan looked everywhere, but he could not find his brother. So the orphan started walking downstream, along the brook. He walked a long way and finally came to a large lake. He looked into the lake, and he saw a village of many houses. He continued walking toward the lower end of the lake, where he met a woman with a small child, who lived there in a little house on the edge of the village. The orphan asked them, "Have you seen the people of this village kill anything recently to eat?" They answered him, "Yes, the people of this village just killed a young deer and ate it. But because we are poor, they didn't let us have any, not even one piece. They ate it all themselves." Then the orphan said to them, "Well, if you say they will not let you have any, and they ate it all themselves, then you two hurry up and get out of this village. Leave right now and go away." When they heard this, the woman and her young child left the village in a hurry and ran away. After they had left, the orphan struck his flint and steel and set fire to the village. Then he, too, left. When he had gone about halfway up the lakeside slope, he looked back and saw a huge cloud of black smoke over the lake. In a short time, the whole lake was on fire. The orphan turned and headed toward home. In a little while, he met an old dragon, who asked him, "Where are you coming from, my orphan boy?" The orphan replied, "I went on a journey to a land far away in that direction yonder, to find a job to earn a living. Now I'm on my way back home, which is a distant land in this direction." The old dragon said to him, "If this is true, please help me. Please go and take a message for me to the old dragon of Blue Lake, who lives in the faraway land where you go. Please tell him to come help me build a new house. Tell him that my youngest son, who is careless and has poor judgment, drove a chisel through the forehead of some stranger's child. Those people were very upset over this and very angry. So they set fire to my village. The fire completely destroyed my very large house. They also set fire to our fields. The fire burned up our rice fields and all our other crops. He also burned to death many couples of servants. Finally, the fire burned my wife to death, and she died with her mouth open. So go tell the old Blue Lake dragon, who lives there in that far-away land, to come the 15th day of the month of the ox, to help me rebuild my house." The orphan hesitated, saying, I'm not sure I'll be able to give him all your message." But the old dragon assured the orphan, "Just go tell him. Great old Blue Lake dragon, the old dragon of Dry Lake says for you to come the 15th day of the month of the ox. He says to have you come and be with him to help him build a new house. You just have to tell him all that I just now said, exactly as I told it to you." So the orphan boy said, "Very well. When I get there, I will tell him." The orphan had a sister who lived near the home of the old Blue Lake dragon. After walking a long way, he arrived at his sister's home, and she killed a pig to make a meal for her brother. She invited all the important village elders to come to the feast. During the meal, the orphan, who wanted to have a contest with them, proposed, "After we finish eating, let's go and call the many-colored dragon of Blue Lake, to see if he will come up from the bottom of the lake." So, Sang Lor, headman of the upper part of the village, said to the orphan, "If you go call the many-colored dragon of Blue Lake and succeed in getting him to come out, I will give you 3 pots of silver and 3 pots of gold. But if, on the other hand, you call him and cannot get him to come out of the lake, then you will work as my slave for the rest of your life." The orphan replied, "Sure, that's just fine with me. Just as you say. Let's go call him. If I call the many-colored dragon of Blue Lake, and he doesn't come out of the lake, and if you call him, and he does come out, then I will be a slave for all the rest of my life. But if you call him and he doesn't come out, and I call him and he does come out, then you must give me 3 pots of silver and 3 pots of gold." They all contested with each other this way, until the orphan's sister began scolding him, saying, "Dear brother, you're already an orphan, a poor, miserable, penniless orphan. Why do you insist on gambling heaven and earth with these people? Please don't do it. Please." But when they finished eating their meal, they all went down to the lake to call the dragon. When they got there, Sanglor called first, saying, "O worthy and respected ancient spangled and spotted dragon of Blue Lake, today we implore you to come out of the lake." He called like this 3 times, but there was no answer, and they didn't see anything come out of the lake. Next it was the orphan's turn to call. He said, "Now, O ancient and most worthy many-colored dragon of Blue Lake, I went to work for a while in a far distant land yonder in that direction. As I was returning and about halfway back, the old dragon of Dry Lake asked me to tell you that his youngest son, the one who is careless and hard-headed, and has poor judgment, took a chisel and drove it into the forehead of somebody else's son. Those people were very unhappy, so they set fire to his village. His house was completely burned down, every room and every wing. Many rice fields, too, were all burned up. Many servants were burned to death. His wife was also burned to death, with her mouth wide open. So on the 15th day of the month of the ox, go to help him build a new house." And the old many-colored dragon groaned in a long moaning voice, like the rumble of far-off thunder coming from his den deep down within the lake. The orphan started over and recited his message a second time, and the ancient many-colored dragon, giving out a long sustained groan, suddenly emerged on the surface of the water. He came up suddenly and asked the orphan, "What's that you were saying?" The orphan replied, "Oh, I went away to a far distant land to find a job, and as I was coming back about halfway on my journey, the honorable and ancient dragon of Dry Lake told me that his son, who is headstrong and careless and has poor judgment, drove a chisel through the forehead of some other people's son, and that those people were quite upset. So much so that they set fire to the dragon's home and village, burning up his whole house and all his rice fields. Many servants were also burned to death, and the dragon's wife, who died with her mouth wide open. Now he asks you to come on the 15th day of the month of the ox, and work with him to build a new house." And the old Blue Lake dragon replied, "Ah, if that's what you're saying, come on down the slope a little closer to the water, so I can talk with you about it." The orphan went right down there to the lake shore, and, just like that, the big old dragon suddenly came and took him away to the bottom of the lake. And Sanglor, headman of the upper village, ridiculed the orphan and made fun of him, jeering, "Huh! He boasted that he would get the dragon to come out, and now the dragon has swallowed him down in one gulp." So the old dragon carried the orphan away and kept him, waiting and waiting till the 15th day of the month of the ox. Then the ancient Blue Lake dragon said to the orphan, "Now that the 15th day of the month of the ox has arrived, I must go." So the orphan said, "If you are going to go away, then so am I." The old dragon said, "Ah, no, you will not go. When I leave here, you will stay and take care of the house. You keep watch over things here, and I will go help them build a new house. When it is finished, and I come back, then you may leave." The orphan thought about this a long time, then finally replied, "Well, all right, I'll stay, just as you say," and he stayed. When the dragon was about to leave, he said to the orphan, "You stay now, but hear this. Do not sound the alarm to announce danger, lest some spirit find out and know. Do not sigh to express your loneliness, for fear some spirit come and make love with you." And with that, the old dragon went away. So the orphan stayed alone at the dragon's day after day. He had lots of time to think, and he thought about what his sister had said. "You're only a poor unfortunate orphan, and must surely have had your fill of being a servant for others. Why then do you want to gamble with these people?" "That's why I really came here, as a slave, taking care of someone else's house." The orphan was very sad, and sighed deeply, expressing his regret. "Oh me, oh my! My sister told me not to gamble for life or death stakes, for I am just a poor orphan, and she is afraid that I will have to work as a slave for others all the rest of my life. If only I had listened to my sister and done what she said, maybe I wouldn't be here now, a slave taking care of someone else's home." While the orphan was talking like this, the old dragon's youngest daughter was inside her bedroom, overhearing everything he said. So she came out of her room to be with the orphan, and she was with him quite a while. She said to him, "You are very sad, but do not pine and sigh, for I will stay with you. When my father comes back, you will just marry me. If my father asks you, 'What do you desire? Do you want cattle or horses?' Tell him, 'No, cattle and horses I don't want, for cattle and horses represent tears of misery and sorrow and death.' Even if he gives you silver or gold, tell him that silver and gold represent tears of misery and unhappiness, and that you will not accept them. Tell him that you only want his little ugly burned cat." The orphan replied, "Oh, that sounds good, but I doubt I will be able to do that." The dragon's daughter said, "Why, of course you can." So they stayed there together and waited until the many-colored dragon came home. When he arrived, he asked the orphan, "My orphan, I have come home now, so what will you have? Will you take silver or gold?" The orphan answered, "I want neither, for silver and gold represent bitter tears of misery and sadness, so I will not have them." So the dragon asked him, "Will you take cattle or horses?" But the orphan refused, saying, "Cattle and horses I would not have, for they only represent the horses of death, and I do not want them." The old dragon said, "Well then, what do you want?" The orphan answered, "I want your ugly little burnt cat." "What? I already told you. You stay here and don't sigh, lest a spirit have sex with you. Don't sound an alarm or cry, for fear a spirit know. But still, even so, you insist you want my little burnt cat." The dragon spoke thus, then went on to say, "No, that's impossible. No, I don't think I can give you my little burnt cat." The orphan insisted, "I really absolutely must have your little burnt cat." So finally the dragon said, "Well, if you want to have my little burnt cat, then I will make you compete with her older brother, to find out which one of you is stronger. Then we'll see." Hearing these words, the orphan went crying to Txiv and said, "Oh, Txiv, if that's the way it is, what am I going to do?" "So," Txiv said, "tomorrow morning get up very early. You get up first before anyone else, and go up behind the house and find a white flat leaf of the nraug plant, one which has 12 drops of dew standing on it. Drink these drops of dew, you see. Drink from that leaf and you will win over them in the contest." So, the next morning, the orphan got up very early, as he had been told. He went out and drank from the leaf of this plant that contained 12 drops of dew. He drank this dew, and he changed into a big bold buffalo with 12 horns. After a little while, the older brother also got up and went outside. He found only another leaf with 8 drops of dew, so he drank from the leaf with 8 drops of dew and changed into a big buffalo with 8 horns. Then they fought, butting each other all day long. Neither one could beat the other one, but neither one lost either. They came back to the house, and the orphan said to the old dragon, "There, is that enough to prove my valor?" The old dragon replied, "No, not so fast. If you want my little burnt kitten, you must measure your strength against her second brother." So Zoe said to the orphan, "If that's the way it is, you just get up very early again and go drink from the leaf of that plant, the one that has 12 drops of dew." So the next morning, he got up very early and went out and drank the 12 drops of dew from the same kind of vegetable plant. The middle brother also got up and went out, but there remained only a leaf with 8 drops of dew. He drank these 8 drops of dew, and so 8 horns grew out of his head, but the orphan again grew 12 horns. Then the two of them butted horns with each other all day long. Neither one of them could completely beat the other one, but neither one lost either. Back at the house afterwards, the orphan asked the old dragon, "Well, is that enough?" The old dragon replied, "No, not yet. Just wait a little. You must first battle with your youngest brother." And so Zoe said again to the orphan, "Get up early and go drink from the leaf of that plant, the leaf that has 12 drops of dew. Just drink those 12 drops." So very early the next morning, the orphan got up and went to drink from the leaf that had 12 drops of dew. Then later, Zoe's youngest brother also went and drank, but from a leaf that held 8 drops of dew. The youngest brother grew 8 horns, while the orphan grew 12 horns. The two of them fought all day, butting horns with each other. Again the orphan was not vanquished. He came back and said to the old dragon, "Now, is this enough?" The old dragon said, "That's not enough yet. You must now have a final battle with me, and then we'll see." The orphan thought, "Oh my, what am I going to do? He's really the biggest, strongest dragon of them all." And he cried and cried. So Zoe said to him, "Do not cry, just be very sure to go and drink from the leaf containing 12 drops of dew. Remember, just those 12 drops." So the next morning he again got up very early. He went out and drank 12 drops of dew from the leaf. His father-in-law went and drank 8 drops of dew from another leaf and grew 8 horns out of his head, while out of the orphan's heads there grew 12 horns. Then the two of them started fighting. They butted horns with each other all day long. Again there was no clear winner, but there was no loser either. They came back home, and the orphan said, "Now, is that enough?" His father-in-law replied, "Wait just a minute. I'm going to have all my daughters dressed up in their newest clothes, so you can choose the one you like best. I'll show them all to you, and you will choose whichever one you prefer and marry her. All right?" The orphan said to Zoe, "What shall I do now, Zoe?" Zoe said to him, "Do not be afraid. My father is going to have all his daughters and all his daughters-in-laws dressed up in fancy clothes. Well, all except me, that is. As for me, I'll be the one dressed in ugly old torn and ragged clothes. The others will be those in exceedingly beautiful outfits. Don't dare choose the pretty ones who come to you first, but then, when I appear before you, take me, only me." The old dragon had all his daughters-in-laws and his older daughters dressed up in very fine and fancy clothes. The wife of his eldest son came to the orphan first and said, "Do you like me? Well, marry me then, please." The orphan said, "No, don't talk like that to me. You are my brother-in-law's wife. It is shameful for you to talk like this, don't you think?" Then the wife of the middle son stood before him and said, "Well, if you won't marry her, then marry me." He answered her, "No, you're the wife of my middle brother-in-law. Don't talk like that. It's disgraceful for you to say that." The youngest brother-in-law's wife came in, and she also said, "Marry me, please." Again the orphan replied, "No, you are my youngest brother-in-law's wife. Don't say things like that. Talking like that is shameful, you know." Zoe's oldest sister came and said, "Please marry me, for I am so beautiful." But the orphan replied, "No, you are the oldest sister. I will not marry you." Just then the middle sister arrived and said, "Marry me, please." But he answered, "No, you are my wife's middle sister. I will not marry you." Then, finally, Zoe came in last in line. She was dressed in very old, worn-out, ragged clothes. She came in, and immediately the orphan took her hand and said, "This is the one I'll marry. No one but her." At last the father-in-law said, "Ah, since he is so smart, I will let him marry her." So the mother-in-law and the father-in-law wrapped up a meal for the couple to take with them, and the newlyweds left to go to their home. They had gone about halfway on their journey, and the sun was beaming down very hot, so they tied together the tops of several clumps of tall reeds to make a kind of tent, and got under its shade to rest, and there they ate their lunch. After eating, the orphan was very sleepy, so he lay down to take a nap. When he woke up, he saw that they were in a fine house, shining bright as streams of sunlight, really an absolutely beautiful home. Then Tziv explained, "While you were sleeping, my parents sent servants to build this house for us to live in, and they have sent servants to stay and work for us. So you will be able to just stay home every day, and I will take the servants rice to eat out where they are working." So from that day on, Zoe went out alone every day to carry rice to the servants to eat. One day, the orphan said to her, "Zoe, you do this job every day. Let me go today, just this once." Zoe replied, "Oh, you don't need to go. I can do it alone." The orphan told Zoe, "But you go every time. You must be getting tired. So let's have you stay home and rest while I go." So it was decided that the orphan would go. Zoe gave him an umbrella to carry over his shoulder and said to him, "Dear orphan, go now and take this umbrella with you. Hold it carefully so it doesn't tilt, but stays right over your head, understand?" So the orphan started out to take food to the servants. Along the way he forgot and let the umbrella tilt at an angle. This way he caught sight of a young lady named nraug, who was wearing fine clothes decorated with golden beads. She said to the orphan, "I'm dressed in beautiful beaded clothes, and I'm very pretty. But that wife of yours, nraug, is so awful she actually drinks sheep's blood. Marry me, I am nraug. I wear dresses with golden beads, and I'm very beautiful." When the orphan returned home, he refused to continue living with nraug. He came in and said to her, "nraug, I don't want to be married to you any longer. You drink lots of sheep's blood, so I won't be your husband. You can go wherever you want to, but just go. I don't want you." nraug said, "Dear orphan, don't talk like that. Stay living with me, and they won't take away all the fine things you have now." But the orphan said, "I won't be married to you, and that's that. nraug is prettier than you, wearing her fine beaded clothes, so I don't want you anymore. You can go anywhere you wish, but get out." nraug burst into tears. She grabbed her broom and started sweeping the house from the back door all the way to the little fireplace. Then she said again, "My dear orphan, keep me as your wife. We will live together, and they will not take away the fine things that are so important to you." The orphan said, "I'm absolutely not going to keep you living here. I don't love you, and I don't want you, so get out." Again, nraug seized her broom. She swept the back part of the house, and again she said, "Please, dear orphan, let me stay married to you, so that all you value so highly will not be taken away." The orphan replied, "No, you can go wherever you want to, but just get out. I don't want a wife like you, who drinks sheep's blood." After the orphan said this, nraug quickly picked up her broom and swept the rest of the house, clear to the main front door. Then she said, "Oh, dear orphan, please keep me as your wife. Otherwise, all the fine things you have received will be taken away." But the orphan repeated, "I will not have you. Go wherever you will, but go. I've said it before, and I still say it. I will not stay married to you. So go on with you. Get out of here." nraug grabbed her broom and lit right in sweeping outside the house. Again she pled earnestly with the orphan, saying, "Let me live with you, dear orphan, and all that you treasure will not be taken away. Why do you want to send me away?" The orphan replied, "I have told you no. I refuse to be married to you. Now leave and get out of here, right now, and I mean it." Finally, Nyangoshopa said, "Very well then, dear orphan. Since you insist that you don't want me any longer, I will leave now, even though it's against my will. After I'm gone, someday, you'll think of me. You'll miss me so much that you will cry and walk around this lake, until the ground under your feet is worn down and the path becomes a trench deeper than a man is tall. All this must happen before you can see me again." Having said this, Nyangoshopa went into the lake and disappeared completely under the water. The orphan returned home, but lo and behold, he didn't see his fine mansion at all. He found only the clumps of reeds which he and Nyangoshopa had tied together at the top to make a shady place to lie down to rest and eat lunch. And in this shelter, he saw a big old Nyangoguga, who was so very lazy that she slept with one leg out straight and one leg bent and the knee drawn up. The orphan was broken-hearted, and he cried a flood of tears. So he went back to the lake, walking with a cane. He walked round and round the lake, crying all the while. He kept walking and walking until the ground was worn away, sunk down and hollowed out, making a trench with banks just exactly to the height of his head. Right at that time, there were 2 toads who had come to wash their laundry in the lake. He said to them, "Dear toads, could you help me, please? My wife, Nyangoshopa, has gone down inside this lake. Can you help me find her?" The toad said, "Very well. If you will not laugh at us, not at all, we will help you." Then the 2 toads started drinking water from the lake. They drank and drank, so that what had been a big lake became just a little puddle. The orphan looked quickly and saw Nyangoshopa weaving at a loom down on the lake bottom, with her shuttle flying back and forth. With one leap, he disappeared inside the lake, there where she was. But in the meantime, a man from the land beyond the sky had already come and married Nyangoshopa. All that remained to do was the last step, claiming the bride and taking her away. On the 15th day of the month of the ox, he and his party were to come and receive Nyangoshopa and take her away beyond the sky. The orphan cried and cried, so Nyangoshopa said to him, "Dear orphan, I told you way back there long ago just to let me stay on being your wife, and all your wealth and finery wouldn't be taken away. But you drove me out, and so now you are very unhappy, really miserable. Now if you want us to get back and live together again, I will stay here while you return home. You must carve wood and make a large wooden tub. Put it outside your home and fill it to the brim with water. And then, on the 15th day of the month of the ox, you must remember to watch it carefully. For on that day they will come to get me, to go live with my new husband. We will ride horses, borne on clouds by the wind. If it is our fate that you and I should live together as a married couple, at that time you will look and see my apron sashes hanging down like streamers and flying around. Then you will leap up and grab them. If you can catch me in that way, then we can be reunited and be married once more. But if you are not able to catch and hold on to my apron sashes, then we will never be able to get back together again." When he heard this, the orphan cried and cried. But he went back home and made a tub, as she had said. Then he carried water on his back to fill the tub completely full. When the 15th day of the month of the ox arrived, the orphan waited and watched faithfully, looking into the tub, watching. When suddenly, lo and behold, he saw them. He saw Nyangoshopa's apron sashes, bunches of them, hanging down very long, flying along. At first, he didn't think of looking upward. He only looked down into the water. He grabbed and grabbed, but caught nothing. And then, all at once, he had an idea. He quickly looked up, and already they were about to pass over. He gave one leap and grabbed onto the sashes of Nyangoshopa's apron. He caught her, and the 2 of them held tightly to each other as they flew away together far beyond the horizon where the sky ends. Now the people who had come to get the bride were very upset by this, and very angry with the orphan. So they began chasing the couple and making war on them. But Nyagojopa took her shuttle and made bolts of lightning streak back and forth. The flashes of lightning kept them out of sight and protected them so that the others were not even able to come close to them. And so, finally, the reunited couple went to live their life together.